Hello, everybody. How's it going? Hope you're having a great day so far, or evening, just depending on what part of the country you're watching from. Thanks for joining me for another live stream. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about design. Um, if somebody could let me know if you're hearing everything okay, music too loud, we're good. You could just chime in. I'd appreciate that. Um, but gonna do a series coming up soon, just as time permits, about starting a character from beginning to end. And I just created an ant character for an upcoming project that I have that I'm working on, and I was gonna kind of just give you a behind the scenes of how I started that project. What types of things that I did, what was I thinking when I started the project, how it's going to be used. I try to factor in all those things. uh, all right, thank you, Marty. Appreciate that. Um, and welcome. Thanks for joining in. So I was going to talk about just my process, my thought. Of course, there's a million ways to do it. No, there's no really one right way. Your way is the right way for you. So, however you approach a design or create your characters, or your project is going to work best for you. So hopefully maybe you'll pick up some tips along the way. You're always welcome to ask questions as we get into it. Leave comments, appreciate that, and we'll talk you through this character that I made, the ant that's in the graphic right there on the side of me. So let's get started. I usually start character design. Somebody asked in the last stream if I just start right in that head. I did. I kind of had a thought in my head, and then I just created it. But I thought I usually start out when I have a project with a sketch. So what I'll do is I'll just sit down either with a sketchbook or just regular paper, and I start with sketches. So I'm gonna try to hold these up to the camera here so you guys can see. These were some of the beginning sketches for this ant character. My goal when designing a character is always to give the character character. If that makes sense. The goal is always to start drawing the character that when he's standing there and he's not even moving, he doesn't have any actions or anything like that, he already has character. And so that takes a while to get to that point. Here's number 2. You guys can see that. Younger, older, goofy, just exploring anything and everything. Pulling up Google images of actual ants, ant anatomy, any cartoon ants I may have seen in the past, pictures of those. So pulling that stuff up and just kind of getting some ideas. Then I will go into exploring different head shapes, trying to find characters, style, something that works different. Like down here at the bottom, you can see the elongated head shape there. Exploring eyes, leg placement as far as when it comes to this ant, all those type of things. And then on this last one right here, I really started to hone in to what I was looking to do. And you can see I put that check mark by that bottom one. Thank you, Lucas. I appreciate that. I've been drawing since I was a little kid. In fact, all my school notebooks, which I do not recommend, but every page had a mural behind it, or some kind of character or something like that. So, yeah. So the last one down there at the bottom, you can see the check. He has no legs yet, but I kind of honed in. It's like, oh, I like that style a lot. So those bottom 2 are really where I took off from. Now, having that in mind, I really didn't draw a finished character and trace it. I just kind of let artistic license take place when I got into the program. Sometimes I like to keep myself free to just do whatever. Of course, if I'm doing something for somebody else, I will definitely do what they want and according to how they want it done and follow those sketches precisely. But when I'm doing something for myself, I always like to leave myself open and not so rigid. So if that's the case, like I just showed you those drawings, what I'll do is I'll just have that on the side of me when I'm working in the program. and kind of designing it around those sketches. I don't really necessarily scan them or bring them into the software, but you can. And when I do hands and feet and stuff like that, a lot of times I do that. And some characters, I'll bring in a graphic that I've drawn and go from there. I keep a sketchbook full of ideas. I have sketchbook after sketchbook. Here's a bird I was working on, toucan, more birds. This was actually going to be a puppet, not actually a 2D animation working on. So I love characters. I love character design. I do that in my, that's my hobby, to sketch, draw, create artistic things. So that's kind of what I do. He's meditating. Yes, he's finding his focus here. So anyway, this is the ant character that I'm working on. I'm working on when I'm designing these. This ant's going to be used not necessarily when I'm not going to use him to walk and like a full cartoon. He's basically just going to be a presenter. So it'll present the thoughts. He'll kind of throw that out there. So he'll do a lot of arm gesture, body gesture. So I'm not really making him to do a lot of walk cycles or anything. So I go into designing a character with those thoughts in mind. So maybe I don't design him in a 3/4 view. Maybe he can turn to a 3/4, but not necessarily walk out of it. So when I'm designing characters, that's what I think of. So maybe that's something that you want to think of. To really build an all-inclusive character is tough. A character that can have, full 180 rotation with walk cycle and everything else. That's a pretty tough thing to do in the software in Moho. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it definitely presents some challenges, especially with IK and things like that. So what I thought I would do is I would just kind of break down this character for you guys and show you what we got going on. So this is him. He's an ant. He doesn't have a name yet. I'll take names if anybody's interested in throwing some names out there, some name suggestions. I'll listen in, and who knows, he might get named. So when I bring him, knowing that he was going to have ant arms and legs, I knew that I could get away with 2 separate pieces to the arms and legs. I didn't have to create an all-in-one piece. So it really makes it very simple to rig. So we'll break it down. I definitely need to clean this up, so please don't follow my example with all this craziness going right here. Now some things I need to do because I need it in front of other body parts. So I need those layers in front and back. So layer stacking. Hey Mega Animation, how's it going? Unknown, how's it going? Welcome. Yeah, my live streaming is pretty much just when I have the time to do it. So I'm sorry that I'll get better at putting it out there. It's still new to me, so y'all bear with me as I'm learning. Y'all learn as I learn, I guess, through my my mistakes. So sorry about that. But so I like to layer order definitely plays a big role in your character design. So you want to make sure that if you need, let's say we need his arms here to cross in front of his body, right? See, the front of the arm crosses in front, but the back of the arm goes behind. So building the arm in 2 separate layers, I can actually put this layer, the forearm, in front of the body in the hand so that he can actually cross in front of his body and gesture, right? But the back of the arm stays behind. So that's something to think about when designing. Where are your arms and hands? See, like right now it does not go behind the head. So if I needed it to go in front of the head, I would have to animate excuse me, the hand. It would have to be in front of the body, right? So the head's here. So he would actually have to have this hand above that. So now, is everybody following me okay? Making sure still everything's good. If I go back to my controls and I grab that arm, See, the arm goes behind, so that would have to move. But if I just needed him to make a gesture here, I could do that. Do you study, draw animatic before animation, like sketch step? Um, I haven't really done a lot of animatics. The way a lot of the animation that I do, I have such a quick turnaround. I usually design and have something animated within a week or two for what I do. So it's really quick. I really don't have time to polish. I'm really just having to get the initial concept down and get it out. I do weekly talks to kids, and I use a lot of my animated references, characters, to bring points across to the kids that I work with. So that subject matter changes, and as the subject matter changes, I try to keep it lively and design a new character on the subject matter. So this one we're going to be talking about ants and referencing, work ethic and how ants, work, and um, how they can, work together as a teamwork, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to be talking about those things. So I'm creating this character to actually present points on the screen, and do some little funny little maybe quick animations in between talking points and segments. So he becomes more like a PowerPoint type presentation. It's not PowerPoint. It's all done video driven, but so a lot of times I don't have time to sit do a full animatic. Now if I do a cartoon, music video, something like that, I will do sit down and block it out and know where I'm going with it. But a lot of one thing I have started doing was actually videoing myself before I do the actual animation, just so I can get timing down, and it's not a guessing game. I can always adjust for a more cartoony, snappy feel. In no way do I consider myself a professional animator. I'm learning with the rest of you guys, learning as I go. Just finding what works for me, studying the pros, watching what those guys do, figuring it out. I spoke in the last stream about actually playing cartoons frame by frame, so I can actually study what the actions that they're doing. So that's one thing that I do to learn and better myself. So when I approach an animation, I started videoing myself, and that's as simple as using my webcam, capturing me doing an action, bringing it into the software, and then matching the character to my movement as best as I have it rigged to do that. So I hope that answers your question, J. Joe. So moving on. So if you just want him in front, you would move, and of course you're limited unless you move the full arm in front, right? And which you can do, but you can actually animate layers as well. So if you go in the controls, under your main control here, and you go in the depth sort right here, enable animated layer order. You need to have that checked. All right, and that will allow you to actually add keyframes to your layer order as you are animating. So if at one point, and maybe you could rig it with a smart bone, which you can, and when the smart bone dial moves one way, it throws it in front of the character, and when the smart bone dial moves the opposite way, it throws it behind the character. I've done that in the past. So this guy, I haven't really done any of that stuff, but it's available to you. So knowing that he would just be doing some simple gestures, and he wouldn't have a lot of walk cycle, I didn't try to create this huge rig, all inclusive, which, like I said at the beginning, is pretty tough task to do. So if I wanted to do that, I would probably reposition the character and maybe rig him for walking in a certain direction, and then I could always flip the whole rig and have him walk the opposite way if I was going to have him do walks to add a second rig. I mean, yes, if I worked at it, I probably could get him moving better, but like I said, he needs to be done by next week, and I need to have all the promotion materials done. I'm doing posters and printing materials and things with his likeness on it, graphics, logos. So it's got to move. So I just kind of learned to work within myself. But one of these days, maybe I'll have more time to make it what it needs to be. So if we look at his basic rig, his head, just kind of like we did on the other streams, I created the head, and that's kind of where I started because, as I said in the beginning, I want the character to have character just looking at him. I don't want it to be like, just a generic look to him. I want him to, when you look at him, you already feel, and hopefully, maybe some of you can chime in. Does he have character as you just look at him standing still before he even moves, before he even has a that his background? You already see some life in him by just looking at him. And personally, I think a lot of that starts in the eyes. And if you could look at these eyes, when looking at ants, I didn't want to go with a white eye. Ants have black eyes. So to add character to an ant's eye, I added this reflection on the eyes, as you can see right here. And then I put the bright highlight. But on those black eyes, and let me show you exactly how I did that. I put each eye on its own layer. I put it in the head right here, right eye. All right. So the eye base, and that is at the actual black sphere stretched on his eye, and then the highlight, I put both of them. So all that is, I have a lot of trouble changing or putting colors in forms already created, especially the complex ones. The overlapping strokes seem to have a lot of. Lucas, I'm not sure I'm following your question. Putting colors in forms already created. So like, are you asking like if I could change colors in something that I've already created? Is that what you're asking? If so, chime back in it and I can show you, hopefully, something that can help you out. So I just created another sphere right on top of the black sphere, and I made it white. If we click on this right here, select shape, right? Click on that. It becomes with the checkerboard. All right, Lucas, we'll visit that in a second. And then when I fill, I take down the opacity of the color way down, and that just gives us that nice reflection in the eye. And that just adds so much life. Also added an upper lid, a lower lid, sorry, and an upper lid right there. And what we did is, if you watch the other streams, you can see how we did masking. All right, so if you go back and look through that, that's exactly what I did. I just masked out. It's in the eye layer, in the eye folder, right? And in the eye folder, I'll explain it. Why not? In the eye folder, you go to masking, you hit hide all, right? So anything that you add above this base, it has to be the last layer in the folder. Anything you add above that will only show through the mask. It won't show outside of the mask. That becomes the mask, the base layer. So anything I do within that layer only shows with inside the mask. So like I said, if you go back, I showed you how to do that on the main head shape. So his eyes are masked. They're their own mask. And anything I do, if I move the highlight, it will disappear. All of that will disappear from him, right? So undo that. So that's how you get it to stay inside the eye. And then when we take the lid, which I set up a blink, and if you have not set up smartphone dials before, if you go to the other head rigging stream, you can go in and you can check out smartphone dials and how to set those up. So I have the eye blink all the way from the top, and all that's doing is pulling that bottom lid down, and it blinks. And then I have a secondary lid where I get both of them to kind of squint his eyes. There again, that was a character design choice. You can have it where they both blink to the middle, I thought it gives it more expression if I can have the bottom lids come up for a squint, and that's not my just the blink. I've set them up where I just the bottom lids move on one bone and the top lids move on another bone. So, as you're thinking through your character, think about how you want it to look, what kind of facial expressions you're going to want him to have. Uh, and a lot of these characters that I do, there's not a whole lot of dialogue, so they need a lot of expression in the face just to get points across when they're pointing out the topic. So, facial expressions, are everything. So that's something you want to take a look at is facial expressions and eyes. The old saying, eyes are the windows to the soul. I really believe eyes make or break a character. So definitely want to take a look at the eyes. So, yeah, Lucas, to your point, let's open up the stream head, all right, that we had. So, if we were to go to our head shape, right, and our base, and we want to change his color. Hopefully this is what Lucas, chime in if this is what you're looking to do. You just click on this, select shape, all right? Hey Marty, I'll have it up on my stream, so you're welcome to jump in anytime you want, all right? Thanks for joining us, appreciate it, have a great day. You can change the color here by just going to your color picker, selecting another color. There you go. If you want to change the stroke out, just click on the stroke. That makes sense, Lucas? Is that helping? Hopefully it is. And then you just keep going through each shape like that, and you can change it any color you want. Now in here we actually have the shadow, and I think it was a blue. Is that cool, Lucas? Does that help kind of clear things up a little bit for you? And we could change that to a green, a highlight, however we want to do it. So hopefully that helps kind of explain color changing once a character is established. And you can actually animate color changes as well. Cool, good. Still, if it's not clear, just let me know. I'll try to put something together, even if it's just a tutorial that I add later to the site that you can check out. So yeah, and you can actually animate the color change, and you can actually set up a color change on a smartphone. So if your character in your scene gets sick, you can actually do the smartphone where his color changes to a green tinge, or if he gets mad, he has rage, you can do a smartphone where he'll actually turn red in the cheeks or in the face, and you can add those type of things in to animate. I'm talking to the screen. I'm talking to your I am talking to the comments like I'm talking to you, Lucas, right here in the comments, but you're here. So anyway, yeah, so you can animate, and that's part of character design as well, knowing what your character will need to do. And you can always add features, take features away as you're going. So if you start out knowing that your character will need to do A, B, and C, when you get into your story or your animation, you decide he needs D and E, you can always add features, change things up. So just kind of having a map to where you're headed in character design, and that way you're not actually doing extra hours and hours worth of work to get your character ready to go for your animation, when maybe you only need to spend 2 hours creating him and still gives you the same outcome. So hopefully that helps. So yeah, back to this character, the ant. The hands are on switch layers, all right? And what a switch layer is, if you're not familiar with switch layers are when I draw several hands, and we'll just use that hand right there. I draw several hands, and I put them in this file right here. In this character, I have, looks like 19 hands that I've drawn. And the same way I did the other. Let me switch here, get you guys closer to the screen. I took my sketchbook and drew a bunch of hands. Some of these made the cut, some of them didn't. And what I did, hey Tim, how's it going? What settings did you use to flex his face that way? Are you talking about, Tim, on the other head, the other stream head? Just reply so I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, I drew a bunch of hands in the sketchbook, and then I just took my phone, took a picture, sent it to myself, and pulled it into the software and began tracing the hands out using the I'll show you how to do that in a minute, how to do a hand. But drew a bunch of hands, and then what you can do is when you have the switch layer selected, now in Moho, before you would have to go through right click and then select the layer, right, and it would change the hand. But now in Moho we actually have selection window. If you go down to Windows, switch selection, all right, I'm gonna pull it up, and there we go. It's gonna show all the hands. Okay, Tim, I'll go back to you and kind of show you that, or I'll explain it on this one. It's squash and stretch, and so if you go through the selection here, it's got all my hands that I created, right? So all the hands that I have available on this character right here. So let's say we want that one. All you gotta do is set on that. When we come to 1, he's gonna be there. If we go to 6 and we want a different hand, you just come through the selection, and there you go. It adds a keyframe, right? And let's say at 12, we wanted that hand, and all you got to do is select it, and you get to go. Yeah, Tim, I'll get to it, man. You can always watch those 2 live streams that I have. In fact, that's probably best for you, so you can take your time and get to it when you can. I actually created that head in the previous live stream, and if you go to the rigging of that head, you can see the squash and stretch. So you'll be good to go with that. So you can do what you got to do, my friend. So, and then you could just switch it, and then as you go through, it animates it. There you go. And it's as simple as that. You're welcome, Tim. Have a great one. Thanks for joining us, man. So this is a great little added tool that we have. Now, it doesn't it will switch as long as you click on the switch layer. So as I have hand switch layers on this character, and I also have feet, right? I got some feet switch layers. So, and then I also have a mouth switch layer, which I used one of the mouths that come with Moho that I was able to add to Moho. So if you own Moho, you actually have the mouth switch layer that you see on this character. So if we go in the head, got his mouth here, open up the switch selection, and it'll go through the mouths as well. So switch layers are nice. I've actually set up mouths where it's just bones, and when I move a bone, it gives me the O shape. When I move another bone, it gives me an E shape. It spreads the mouth open. So there's multiple ways of doing it, just depending on what you want to do. If I have a character that really won't have a lot of dialogue, I'll use switch layers. If I have a character that's going to have a lot of dialogue, once again, character design, thinking ahead, what's he going to be used for, how are you going to use it, I'll use switch layers, because if it's just expressions that I'm looking to get out of him, I can accomplish that with switch layers. I have several mouths already created. I built a library of different mouth shapes ahead of time, so if I need to put a character together quickly, I can do that. I've also done the same thing with hands. I have created several hands that I can, you know what, I'm showing you this and I don't even have it up on the screen. Sorry. Let me get back to that. Alright, back to this. Here we go. Switch layer, alright? Right here. Let me close it out and show you where to get to it. You go to Windows and you go to Switch Selection right there. Boom, it pops up the window. And as you move through, it shows you the different mouth shapes and things that are available to you. Is that cool? So all you got to do is click on it, move to the next one, and there you go. So now when I play it through, animate it. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize I wasn't on the right screen, but I did the same thing with the hand. If you go to the ant's hand, let's eliminate all that. If I pull up the window, switch layers, it shows you all the hands that I have created for this character. And as I was saying before, I've created several different hand shapes and saved them to my library. So when I create a character, so I can quickly turn it around, I'll just go into my library. I'll grab a switch layer of a different type of hand. Maybe some are more square, maybe some are more round. I'll pull those in and add them to my character. It's really easy. And then I bind that switch layer, the whole layer gets bound to the hand bone, and now I can use it on any character that I create. I do the same thing with eyes, mouths, different eyebrows. So I'll build a library ahead of time. That way I can turn characters around quickly. And maybe I'll come up with something new, like on this ant. I don't think I have these type of eyes saved. So I will just save those eyes, just the eyes, as its own part of my library, so that if I ever want that type of eye again, it's already created for me. I just drag it in and add it to that character. So if I come up with a new mouth, new hands, new feet, new shoes, whatever, I'll save them out. That way in the future, maybe just change a color like I just showed Lucas or something like that, and then I can add that to any character. And I'm already ahead of the game. I'm not having to create everything from scratch. So part of character design is being a good planner, thinking about future, what you can do, what it needs to do first, and then the things you want to add and how you're going to accomplish what it needs to do. So knowing that these, like I said, these characters will do minimal, I designed it accordingly. So with him, I will go through what I've done. I showed you the eye blink, top and bottom, like that, right? Brows up and down. Get a little closer here so you guys can see it. The brows go up and down. Antenna, put that on a smart bone so I can get some real good antenna movement. I have a head turn, right? Head up, head down. I knew that would be a big part of his expression. The head turn up and down. Body turn. As you can see, I only turn really the lower portion. The head I kept as a separate turn so that I can look back as he turns that way, or if he turns that way, I can move his head back this way. So I kept them separate. And the same way we set up the other character heads, smart bones, that's what you do, same way. And if you notice on the body turn here, when I'm turning the body, I actually animate the arms here so that it makes it look like it's turning. So if I'm turning to the right, his right, Those arms will actually tuck behind the body a little further, actually animated the size of this bone, that shoulder bone, so that it would tuck behind it and it pulled these out. Now, I didn't animate, you can animate layer order like I showed you at the beginning, where you can actually pull these bones in front. And I do that a lot as well. But this character, I kept the colors the same, so I didn't really think I had to do that. I could still cheat it enough where it still feels like it's part of the body and you can still see the turn. Because of this front shape being arched like that, you can see his chest turning side to side. So he has that. Now you've seen, of course, all the arms are set up, and I set restrictions on the elbows so they can only go so far. There again, see that hand goes behind the head, and then we just switch this one where it goes in front. Now that's all due to layer order. If I wanted both those hands and forearms to go in front of his face as well, I'd have to find those forearm layers, pull them in front of the head layer. That way when the hand crosses in front, it can be in front of the head. So that all has to do with layer order. So when designing a character, know, does his hand have to go in front of his face? Is he going to hide his face? When you're thinking about that, is he going to touch his forehead in front where he can say, I'm thinking about something? You know, think about all those things. What kind of actions can he do? Like I said, you can always adjust it, but it's good to have a plan going in, knowing your layer order and how you want to do it. Hope this is making sense to you guys. Also set up some target bones on the legs, and what target bones allows you to do is his feet will actually stay in place, and it'll allow the IK of the knees to work accordingly. His feet will stay, and then I took his feet, and on the foot, if you click on that bone and the bone constraints, you click on independent angle. Independent angle allows the rest of the character to move, the rest of the IK to work, but the foot will stay in its position and will have to be animated whenever you need it to move. So it won't move on its own. It'll only move if you animate it. So it'll stay in place. So this root bone here is what I use. So now if I ever wanted him to jump, right, I have to animate his feet down in that down position like so. So let's say, let's freeze the pose. Bone. When I start out, I always try to freeze my pose at 1, right? And then what that does is it takes all the bones in its 0 position, freezes them so you have a starting point, and it's always good to use those. So I'll copy, edit, copy, come to 6, and then edit, I'll paste it. So he's gonna stay in that position, but in between we can do is we can just give some anticipation. We can grab on that or his jump, tweak his body, and then when he gets here, jumps. Of course you want that faster, but you get the idea. And then we'll move that up closer, then we'll come back to the copy, paste right there, and it comes back. So how you would do a jump. Of course you'd want to animate it with all the tweaks and squash and stretch and all those things like that. Oh, and another thing I have also is squash. So squashing down. Now in the last live stream I did on squash and stretch, I actually physically moved the points to keep the stretch and keep the volume of the shape. Since then, someone commented on my stream and showed me a better way. It was Chris W, which Chris, if you watch this, thank you so much. That was a great fact that I did not know. I knew squash and stretch bones for using target bones, but I had no idea I could set them up on a smart bone dial and allow the volume to stay. So thank you so much. That will definitely help my workflow a lot. So what we do, and I'll show you, let's just show you on a new one. So let's create a ball. And when you're designing your characters, I encourage you to use squash and stretch because it really adds a lot of life to your characters, and this is something you can do. So any shape you want, right? Let's create a ball here. We'll go with a bone layer. If anybody has any questions, please chime in. I'll be probably stopping the stream here in a little bit. Just wanted to give you kind of a background on my character design process. So if you got any questions, chime in and I'll get to those before we end up. So we put it in a bone layer, right? We take the add bone tool and we just add a bone there, and it's selected. That'll be child, right? And so we're gonna select that bone. We're gonna get the envelopes off of them. Select that bone, and then we'll select that layer. Bind that layer to that bone by clicking on the bone. Once again, in the rigging tutorial, I show you this. And the thing I need to show you is so now, go back here. That bone, not doing what I need to do. Got that one. Let's add another bone here. And I'm gonna select this bone, parent it, this bone, right? So now you should be able to move this bone, and it operates the sphere. All right. So we want to add a squash and stretch to this sphere. So if you have let's say it's a head, and you wanted the head to have some squash and stretch, the new way that Chris W, thank you sir, showed me was that if I go to add a bone, right? So let's add a bone. Remember, Alt, click on your canvas, clears any bone selection, because if not, it will become a child of the selected bone, which your bones will freak out, go all over the place. All right, go to bone, make smart bone dial, right here. And Tim, if you're still around, this is how we got that. So once you go here, you will see that bone moves. Okay, so we're going to add a motion to that. Before I do that, click on the main line here. We want to add this bone. We're going to click on it, go to bone constraints, and hit the squash and stretch scaling right here. All right, right there. Well, let me show you before, and then I'll show you after what it does. All right, so let's go back to B3. All right, Tim, good. This is what you were waiting for, my friend, right here. So if we go to B3 and we click on the bone, I'm gonna add a motion to it. All right, make sure it's blue down here. Buttons. We're gonna grab our tool right here. All right, that is the transform bone tool. Highlight it, and if we pull it down, it squashes the ball. All right, pretty simple. So there we go, just squashes the ball. We click on B3-2, which is the second action of that bone, because we set it up in a 90-90 degree angle. All right, and this one we're going to stretch it. So we're going to select the bone tool there, and we're going to go and we're going to stretch it like that. All right, so that's how you add squash and stretch. So we, cancel main line here. All right, and then when you go to the bone, now we got squash and stretch. Pretty simple, but it does not keep the same volume when it stretches with the ball. So if we go and we select that bone, and then we come here and we add squash and stretch scaling, then we come back, watch what happens. You see? Huh? Look at that. So what it does is it expands the volume of the ball so that the same amount of ball is stretched out and is part of the animation. So thank you, Chris W, for that. We were achieving that, but it was definitely taking a lot longer than just clicking a button because we were having to move points and making that happen. So that's what I love about community is if we're all chipping in, we're all learning together, we're all going forward to make better animations. So there you go. So that's squash and stretch right there. And it's as simple as clicking on that bone that you want to have that applied to, bone constraints, and hitting the squash and stretch scaling right there. And then you can set how much. Maybe that's too much, maybe it's not. Hey, thanks for joining the stream. I'm sorry I don't speak Russian. Looks like you're in Russian there, but thanks for joining. Thanks for hanging out with us. But you can actually add, 0.5 to both of these and lessen the effect, and vice versa if you wanted more effect on there. So now when we click, it's less. It's nowhere near as much. So there you go. Very good. So anybody have any other questions? Any other thoughts about character design? Maybe something how I approach something, color scheme. I do a lot of research, like I said. I do a lot of research as far as looking at photographs, Google real ants, pull in from ant anatomy, things like that. Believability really is based on reality. So if you want to sell your characters, try to have some basis of reality in it, or as anatomy or whatever, the best you can. It's your character. Have fun with it. But so cool. I hope you guys got something out of that. If anybody's got any other questions, I'll be happy to answer before we head out, and I can get this finished and keep working on this project and get it completed for my upcoming program. So if anybody's got any questions, you can chime in. It'd be great. We will do a series on creating a character from start to finish. I'm working on putting that together. I want to spend a little time of it. It'll be broken up over several streams. Don't know exactly when that's going to happen. Some of you have been asking me, so but we'll do it when we can. I promise, and I'll try to get that word out there that it's coming. You guys can jump in, and as always, I'll add this to my feed, so you can end that to my feed. So if you miss it, you can always jump in and check it out later. So anybody, any questions, any thoughts, ideas, future? I'm listening. We'll wait another minute or so. If anybody wants to chime in with anything else, we can do that. Anybody? Right. Well, as always, guys, thanks for joining me on this journey as I learn to get better. Hopefully, I'm passing on some knowledge I've learned over the years of filling behind the keyboard here. Sweet, Tim. Cool. Yeah, keep plugging away. It'll be it's a fun journey. I've enjoyed it. Tedious, but it's fun. I mean, to see an idea come from my head, just a thought, to actually get on paper, like I showed you with the sketches, and go through all those ideas, and then actually bring them into the computer, bring it to life, and see them actually move, and then to see kids' reactions to it. In my case, I mean, that's worth all the time and effort for me. So, keep creating, keep animating, and I'm sure you'd be awesome at what you do. Love to see some of your work one day. So, if anybody else has anything, I think that's going to do it for today. Where's the best place to ask questions when you're not on stream? You can always go to I have Troy Picou The Works Facebook page. You can message me there, and it shows a lot of my work. Other than animation, I have a lot of props and puppets and things that I've built in the past. You can check those out. But you can message me there. You can post in the comments under this stream. I usually catch those when they come around. But so you contact me a few ways if you have questions you can ask. But if you have something specific about the stream or something like that, if you just leave it in the stream comments, I monitor those pretty much, so you can get them answered there. Cool. Thanks for joining me. Lucas, I hope that helped you out, man. I was glad you were able to join us today from, let's see, I forgot where you were coming from. Rio, I think. I think that's where you're joining us from, Lucas. Thanks for joining me, man. I appreciate that from your side of the planet there, man. Thanks for hanging out with me this morning. It's morning here. I don't know what time it is here, but it's afternoon now. Cool. All right, everybody. Have a good one. I think that's going to do it for today. Y'all have a great day. Keep animating. Keep working. Keep bringing smiles to kids' faces. You know, it's definitely something awesome to do. So you guys take care. See ya. Bye.